was just trying to keep the damage to a minimum.
Is that working out for you?
You okay? Because you don't look okay.
There's a long dormant piece of me that so very badly wants out.
What are you still doing here?
The story unfolds in a world where quiet streets and familiar routines often hide the kind of storms that never make noise until they explode. At the center of this world stands a man who once moved like a shadow through the most dangerous corners of the human psyche, yet now blends into the background of everyday life like faded wallpaper. His neighbors barely notice when he steps outside each morning. His coworkers never wonder what thoughts flicker behind his calm expression, and even his family has learned to accept that his silence is simply part of who he is. But silence has never been the absence of truth. It has been the cage that holds it back. And inside this man lives a truth forged in fire, fear, and the memories of everything he once had to become to protect the fragile world others take for granted. The rhythm of his days has become almost mechanical. He wakes before dawn, moves quietly around the house so he doesn't disturb anyone, and steps into a routine that has become predictable to the point of suffocation. There is comfort in repetition, but there is also danger because comfort is where instincts are dulled and edges grow soft. He knows this better than anyone, and yet he has embraced this life with the fragile hope that perhaps the world can forget what he once was if he simply behaves like an ordinary man long enough. Each morning, he tries to convince himself that the shadows in his mind will eventually dissolve, and the ghosts of past missions, past choices, and past enemies will fade with time. But time is not a healer for men like him. It is a reminder. Every day, there is a moment when his old instincts pulse beneath the surface. It could be triggered by the way someone stares at him too long, the way a stranger's footsteps sound too soft, or the way a seemingly harmless situation feels like a trap waiting to snap shut. He tries to suppress these instincts because they do not belong in the calm domestic life he has chosen. But instincts trained over years of surviving the impossible do not vanish. They hibernate, waiting for the spark that tells them to rise again. And that spark arrives in the most unexpected way, through a burst of chaos that enters his house like an unwelcome reminder that the past never truly stays buried. The moment the equilibrium of his quiet world shatters, something inside him wakes up like a sleeping lion forced out of its den. The part of him he tried to lock away, the part that once moved through danger with deadly precision, begins to stretch beneath the surface, brushing against the walls of the life he built. For so long, he convinced himself that he could ignore this version of himself, but the truth is that he has missed it. He has missed the clarity that comes when danger strips away the unnecessary. He has missed the absolute certainty that comes with acting on instinct instead of emotion. He has missed the brutal simplicity of survival, where every move has meaning and every second counts. But the return of this instinct is not driven by ego. It is driven by something deeper, something that has festered inside him for years. Regret. The regret of choices that cost him pieces of himself he can never get back. The regret of watching his life become a faded photograph of what it once was. The regret of knowing that even though he escaped the darkest parts of his past, the echoes of it still cling to him like smoke. And when he finally allows that old part of himself to resurface, something within him aligns not with the violence he once wielded, but with the purpose behind it. As the world around him spirals into danger once more, he finds himself standing on the edge of two identities, the man he pretended to be, and the man the world once feared. Each step he takes pulls him closer to the version of himself that was capable of facing enemies no one else even knew existed. Yet even as he reclaims that strength, he feels the weight of the consequences pressing against his mind. When he returns to the path he walked years ago, he knows it is not a temporary detour. It is a reckoning. The forces he awakens are not the kind that fade quietly. They rise with hunger, drawn to the familiar scent of unfinished business. As danger grows, he begins to see the world through old eyes again. Every room becomes a battlefield. Every street becomes a map of threats and opportunities. Every face becomes a potential enemy or witness. But something is different this time. He is no longer a tool used by others. He is a man reclaiming control of the life he nearly lost. That realization gives him a power he never had before, the power of choice. He no longer fights because he must. He fights because he refuses to let his past or his enemies dictate who he becomes. This shift gives him clarity in a way he has never experienced. For the first time, the violence he possesses is not something he fears. It is something he understands deeply, something he uses with purpose rather than obligation. But every choice has consequences, and his reawakening does not go unnoticed. The world he once escaped starts to move again, like an old machine groaning back to life. Whispers spread, old rivals resurface, and memories that were once buried begin to crawl into the present with sharp teeth. He becomes a name again, not the name on his mail or his driver's license, but the name spoken in fear by those who once saw him as a threat. And as this old reputation ignites, it draws enemies from the shadows like moths to a flame. They come with grudges, with vengeance, with the kind of rage that lingers long after the original wound has healed. But they do not understand something vital. He is no longer fighting for an institution or a mission. He is fighting for his own redemption. For the first time in years, he steps fully into the storm rather than running from it. The battles he faces are brutal, but they are also revealing. Each fight exposes pieces of truth he tried to deny that he is capable of, more than the quiet life ever allowed, that the world still needs the skills he buried, and that his humanity is not lost in violence, but sharpened by purpose. The bloodshed does not come from a desire to destroy. It comes from the desire to protect, to restore, to reclaim control of the story that was slipping from his hands. As the tension escalates and the stakes rise, he begins to sense a shift within himself. Something settles. Something becomes whole. It is as if the two fragments of his identity, the quiet family man and the relentless force of nature, finally merge into one. And in that merging, he becomes more dangerous than he ever was before, because he now understands the value of the life he fights to defend. He is no longer a weapon shaped by others. He is a man who shapes his own destiny. And every enemy who crosses his path feels the weight of this transformation. By the time the storm reaches its final peak, he has crossed a point of no return. Not into darkness, but into clarity. His journey is not about reclaiming old glory or returning to a forgotten world of violence. It is about embracing the truth he denied for too long, that he is not meant to disappear into the background of ordinary life. He is meant to stand at the intersection of chaos and control, using the force inside him to carve a path towards something better. He does not fight because he enjoys it. He fights because he refuses to be powerless. And in this refusal, he becomes something far greater than a man hiding from his past. When the dust finally settles and the last echoes of conflict fade into silence, he stands taller, steadier, and more certain of who he is. The world may see him as someone ordinary, someone forgettable, someone who blends into the crowd. But he understands the truth now. He has never been ordinary. He has never been invisible. He has always been the spark that ignites the fire, the storm hidden beneath still waters, the force others underestimate until it is too late. And even though he may return to the quiet life he tried so hard to maintain, he does so with a renewed sense of strength, a renewed understanding of identity, and a renewed purpose that no enemy can take away. Because in the end, the world may label him as a nobody. But the story proves something far more powerful, that sometimes the people the world overlooks are the ones who carry the greatest fire inside them. And when that fire rises, nothing can stand in its way.